and welcome to episode 117 of Formidable Opponents, a show that pits three people who have known each other virtually their entire lives in a series of conversations as we argue what is best in a variety of fun, engaging, and critical pop culture topics we all debate about. I'm Randall, and with me as always, Bob and Joseph, and this week's topic is Best Character from The Office. For 9 years, the quirky and hilarious world of Dunder Mifflin was showcased in a fun mockumentary where relatability, humor, absurdity, and heart were brought to us by a powerhouse ensemble. You have to admire the balance and the spotlight moments the cast and crew gifted each other. Like any collection of characters, some were the clear focus that drove storylines, but this collection all kept us compelled with the ever-evolving plots and arcs. What The Office did, though, was continuously allow all cast members to have their moments under those fluorescent tube light bulbs, whether it was a hilarious cutaway or a line delivered to punctuate the preposterousness of the situation. The oddball assortment of characters formed a dysfunctional yet lovable group of coworkers, and although over-exaggerated, they often reminded us of our coworkers, our situations, and the insight of how much time we see our very own coworkers. The Office brought everything to the forefront, and for 9 seasons, 201 episodes, and countless memes, the series creators, writers, and actors took a brilliant idea gifted to them by Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant and gave us a timeless classic that will forever live on in reruns and never leave our memories. This week, Formidable Opponents debates and discusses Best Character from The Office. With me, as always, are members from the Police cover band, Scrantonicity, I guess. Bob and Joseph, how are you guys doing?
What the fuck?
Randy is rough. Randy is out of season right now.
He's out of sync, out of everything. You ever see a quarterback who hasn't got his reps in yet? That's what Randall looks like right now.
We've been out for 2 weeks, and that read was a tough one. I was mispronouncing the word spite. I couldn't get it going. I think it was Sprite. I don't know.
Yeah, Sprite.
How are you guys doing, Bob and Joseph?
What's going on, folks? What's up? It's been good. Buddy. It's been a good 2 weeks. We had a good 2 weeks off. I had to take a little time off. I had to take care of some stuff, and we're really happy to be back. I'm really happy to be back. What about you, Joe?
I'm just, here so I don't get fined.
Talk about practice.
Joseph was loving that 2 weeks off. He was hoping to extend it. We want to wish a few people some good wishes. We want to wish happy birthday to Joseph, whose birthday was during the break.
All right.
Also,
big 40. Geez.
Also, not even 40.
A belated happy Mother's Day to all you mothers around the world. We didn't get to wish you all happy Mother's Day last week, but we hope you enjoyed it and you make the world spin around, girls. Thank you so much.
Yes, that's more important than my birthday.
We're talking about The Office. How did you discover The Office, and what initially drew you to watch this show?
I'm sure it was because Bob was watching it.
You're welcome.
Now I remember.
You're welcome.
Bob had the DVDs.
Yes, I did.
I remember. That's okay. So I was aware of the show at least, but I hadn't, watched it or whatnot. I just hadn't. And
we were young at the time. We were too busy partying to watch television
like when did the first season come out? I don't remember when the first
2005.
2005.
Yeah,
we were
in college. We just got in college, so
But I remember Bob had at least the first 2 seasons on DVD. Mm-hmm. And I think y'all were just getting rid of like DVDs or whatever. So part of like what I took from you and Dina's house when y'all were cleaning up was
getting rid of all the DVDs that we had.
Yeah, a stack of stuff, and I just put in the first one since I had the 1 and 2, I believe. And from there on, it was like, okay, I gotta fucking watch this show, and I gotta get caught up where I don't know what. Yeah, no, I mean,
they're probably like on season 4 by the time.
They're probably about
season 5.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of Girls Gone Wild DVDs released to Joseph's possession, I imagine.
We actually had a huge. Well, what's funny is that you mentioned that. Yeah, Joe, I went to Walmart as we did back in the day, and I found the season 1 DVD and I bought it, and I actually went to see Dee in Austin to visit her, and we saw the first season on DVD there in Austin, and man, I couldn't stop laughing. I thought it was hilarious, and the show had already been out for a while. I believe they're already on season 2. When I caught season 1, I couldn't stop laughing, and I knew, like, oh, man, I got to buy the next season. I got to watch the next seasons and all that good stuff. Yeah, we definitely had them. I know, Joe, there was a time where we had a plethora of DVDs that we were trying to get rid of because, we moved into a house, and we had to get rid of a lot of shit, from when we were kids. So, I think Joseph got a lot of DVDs.
I think for me, sort of the same. I wasn't watching the show from the very beginning. To me, I started watching The Office. It was close to wrapping up season 3. This was spring 2007. It was during a professional development day at work, and we had these breakout sessions in the afternoon that none of us wanted to go to, but we had to go to. And I couldn't find a topic that interested me, and so somebody was administering this conflict resolution session. I go, okay, I'll go to this conflict resolution session. I go in there and I spot a coworker, and it was crazy because the irony was I wasn't getting along with this coworker at the time. And I was like, here we are, both of us at this conflict resolution session, probably trying to figure out how we could have a resolution
Threesome.
to the conflict. Yeah. No, not a threesome. Anyway, so we weren't getting along at the time. We've long made amends.
Whoa. You even said made love there too, guys. It's coming out, baby. It's coming out.
No, you're good. We've long made amends, but at the time, it was an awkward situation. So anyway, we both had a fun job, but we were in this very toxic environment. There was, a lot of manipulation. It was just poor quality leadership, but we were at fault as well because we didn't do anything to come together and fix what was broken. So for this workshop, the facilitator plays this episode that features the Jazz Babies poster. You remember that? I think it was Christmas Part 2 where half the office was, arguing about this poster of these Jazz Babies. So they're trying to resolve this conflict. And I see my coworker, she's excited about this show. She claps her hands like, oh, we're going to watch The Office. And she had this big smile on her face and she just seemed so happy. So I immediately left work and I purchased the DVD sets. I purchased seasons 1 and 2. And I don't think I ever watched it on NBC. I just waited for them to come out on DVD and binge them. This was before streaming. And I used The Office as a sort of, peace offering to get along with this coworker. And it helped because we started talking about shows we liked and we got along better. So The Office actually helped me to become a better coworker, I guess. Guys, I want to ask you, what was the importance of this show? Why did it hit and resonate with so many people?
I think because in one way or another, you were in that situation. You were in, as soon as I got out of high school, I've worked in offices. The majority of I'd say like the viewers did or still do, and it kind of resonated with them. I think it resonated, to the point where because they all felt like there was a coworker that reminded them of a character from the show, and it was funny because even if the small little time, because the story would be the story of the show would have its episodes and it would have this particular story for the episode, and was it something that would probably happen in a real office? Maybe not, but it was still funny. But there were things and aspects about the show and the everyday life of an office that that were familiar to the viewers, and I think that's what drew them in. I mean, a lot of people just wanted to laugh at their own situation at work.
Yeah, I'm sure being so damn relatable helped out a lot. Everybody has, it's a mixed bag of coworkers that you end up working with as you grow up and as you grow older, and with every job you have, different characters, right? Just like in the show. So I think it's just real relatable for people, and the crazy scenarios that these people have to deal with or have to connect over. It really is what attracts most the audience members. Not to mention it's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
For sure. To punctuate that, guys, I think this show ran in tangent with what I was experiencing in my life at the time. Career transitions, being in my late 20s, early 30s, thinking I deserved better and not really knowing how young I truly was and how much I had to grow. I think all of my adult relationships happened during this time when the show was in its run. So like the characters, I was experiencing all these emotions while trying to understand who I was or what I could be. And like shows like Friends and Seinfeld, the characters were a bit too old, but this show was extremely relatable from a growth and emotional perspective. So I think that's why it's important to me. And like you said, it was hilarious. Guys, in sitcom history, where do you rank this show?
I would say top 10. I was damn near going to say like top 3 or 4 because it has, it's an amazing show, but those seasons without not Will Ferrell, Steve Carell really hurt the show. Like I still watch it, but it didn't have the same like punch as it did when Steve Carell was on it. He was a really big part of the show. And yeah, I did mention Will Ferrell. Yeah, he was a terrible when they brought him on. The seasons, the way he acted, I was not into that at all. So it was definitely kind of a turnoff when Steve Carell left and they were kind of trying to find the next manager, the next person. It wasn't really my cup of tea. But top 10 for sure, man. Top 10 for sure. It's a great show. Loved all the characters.
I'd say top 5 for me. I can't name the other 4, but at the
MASH.
moment right now, I'd have to
I'm just
think.
kidding.
But it's at least top 5 in my opinion.
I think it's top 5 for me too.
Even though, yeah, like I agree with Bob. You know what? The last 2 seasons may have suffered a bit without Steve Carell. I've said this before. I think because I do think unintentionally the focus shifted to Dwight and Jim and Pam and I thought they were. If there's anything that you do like about the last 2 seasons, and if you're somebody that says the last 2 seasons aren't good because Steve Carell's there, if there's anything that you do like about him, it's still Jim and Dwight. So
let me ask you a question though. If when Michael had left and they did that finale with him, if he had left and they decided the following season would be their farewell season, and it's just the Dwight and Angela's wedding, and he shows up at the very end, if they had ended it like that, I could definitely say it's top 3 for me all time. I really do think, because it was so fucking funny and it was so entertaining, and you loved all the characters. And when he left, if they just brought on that one last season and they just made it about the wedding, and then of course Steve Carell shows up for the finale, I thought that would have been the fairy tale ending it needed, and it would be top 3. Shit, might even be top 2 for me all time.
I think for me, top 5. I think it's behind Seinfeld, The Simpsons, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and Cheers. So maybe number 5 for me.
How old are you?
Well, I was too young for All in the Family, I Love Lucy, Mary Tyler Moore, and MASH. So at least some semblance of youth is found in this list. But it's definitely top 5 for me. I think that the show it still lives on. It hasn't been outdated yet, and I think that's the advantage of it. I think maybe in another 10 years or so, it's going to seem a little more outdated, but the memes are going to fade away. But right now, it still feels very fresh because there hasn't been a sitcom like this since it exited television. So I think it still sort of holds the crown of that mockumentary ensemble comedy, because we haven't had one like that since The Office left the air. Or if we have, I can't name one. I don't know if you guys could name a sitcom that
is Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec, probably at the same time they ran close to close, close enough, I guess. How do you think? Mouth to mouth. How do you think The Office has influenced other TV comedies that came after it?
Influenced them? I mean, we saw it in things like you just mentioned, Parks and Rec. There was another show called Superstore that I liked. It wasn't the mockumentary. But the kind of the workplace comedy, and that's why I'm mentioning Superstore, which I think is funny. I think it influenced them big time. We wanted to see this, or at least I'm cool with seeing it. I can't say like I wanted to see it, but I was definitely on them. I was that's weird.
Whoa. Conversations going
like things like
way.
Parks and Rec. Like Parks and Rec. The difference. What's weird about Parks and Rec is it is like a quote unquote mockumentary, but you never know what exactly they're being filmed for. They're being filmed, but like it's not like The Office where like they're filming for a TV show, which we see end up later being a documentary that gets released. That doesn't happen with Parks and Rec, so that's a little bit weird. Superstore is a sitcom in a workplace environment, but I think it influenced them a lot. People wanted to see things like this, maybe switch it up. I know it was fun. Like it was funny to see these events and these happenings and these characters and individuals that people work with on a daily basis in all aspects of life, whether it's I think there was a tire store show, wasn't there, like some kind of thing like that, or no, like a car dealership one recently with Molly Shannon.
Okay,
The Dealership.
Yeah.
She was on a TV show, a new one.
Well, I mean, it's not super new now, and it's probably over by now. But I remember Molly Shannon had a show that came out not too long ago called The Dealership, I think, and it was about a car dealership. So I think it had a big influence on all these shows, and we're still going to see shows like this. We're still going to see shows coming out that are like in the quote unquote mockumentary style or workplace comedies.
I kind of agree, dude. Yeah, I mean, it does influence shows like Parks and Rec, as the mockumentary stuff. But I think more like the workplace thing. I think that's something that hadn't really tapped into a lot since maybe like Cheers. I did love Cheers. I was a kid at the time, but like seeing the reruns as I got older. Great show. But I think it influenced. I mean, just like it always does. I mean, I think a lot of shows have influence. Great character. It's a comedy but you fall in love with the characters, you fall in love with them individually, you like the storylines, you want to see how they end up. So I think it's a similar story. They just did it really, really, really well.
I think so too. The mockumentary, you saw that with Parks and Rec, as you mentioned. Modern Family used it very well as well.
Yeah.
That disruptive innovation really assisted through the storylines and the comedy. There isn't really a linear storyline because the show is about social realism. So there isn't like, oh, let's follow up towards the. I mean, of course, there was the Jim and Pam romance, but everything else was just kind of a day in the life of, which I thought was a great setting. The show was not only about the relations of the characters, but it also brought in their fans because it was so voyeuristic, and that reflects what modern day society is with social media and us wanting to know, keep up with the Joneses, want to find out what other people are doing. So I think it was a bit before its time. I want to ask you guys, what is the single funniest moment from the show?
Oh man, you want to start, Joseph?
I couldn't pick exactly one. I'm sorry.
I have two.
Go. I have one.
I have two.
I'd love to hear that. I gotta hear
the fire safety scene where he lights the trash can on fire and everybody's petting like, "Say to fucking come!" And they're trying to sneak out to the roof and break the door down with the printer. Like I thought that scene was extremely hilarious. From the first season when they do that ethnic card on the forehead. And Michael's saying that, you'd like to try my to Mindy Kaling's character, and she slaps the shit out of him. That was the scene that fucking hooked me, dude. I was like, that is hilarious. Like, fucking hilarious, man. I think that
man, am I a woman?
Yes, dude. That scene just hooked me to the show, dude. Hooked me to the show. Then one last one, the Asian dude that dresses like Jim. It was a really quick scene.
Oh yeah,
Randall Park. Like, you're not Jim, and he flips over the picture, and it's him, and then he kisses Pam, and fucking Dwight's freaking out. Yeah, those three. But the ethnic cards and then the fire. I mean, those scenes were just really, really, really funny.
Real quick, I think one of the funniest things about that scene is they're all trying to escape at one, and then at one point Kevin goes and like destroys the snack machines, the vending machine.
Everybody's trying to break the windows to get out. Yeah, Kevin breaks the vending machine glass and starts stealing the chips.
Speaking of Kevin, my all-time rewatchable favorite scene is when Kevin spilled the chili in the there's a cold opening.
Yeah.
It's funny because he comes in, he's doing the narration. At least once a year, I like to bring in some of my famous Kevin's chili. The trick is to undercook the onions. Everybody's going to get to know each other in the pot, and this is serious. And then he spills it. He's trying to scoop it up with like manila folders.
Yeah, and he's crying. Fucking Kevin. I crack up with Kevin, the other scene where he's wearing a wig at the wedding. Yeah. He's wearing the wig at the wedding, and he's wearing the Kleenex boxes as shoes. He's like, tonight I got 5 numbers. 2 more, and I would have gotten 1 whole number. He said some shit like that. Made me laugh a lot. Yeah.
That voiceover, that distress, and like the voiceover still going, it's the thing I do best.
Yeah.
He's trying to scoop up. It's just crazy, man. Poor Kevin, man. Speaking of characters, which character or characters did you dislike the most?
I can't remember his name. What's his name? Deontay.
You're talking about Will Ferrell's character?
Will Ferrell's character.
Oh, yeah. I'm with you on that.
I know it was and luckily it was only planned. It was only planned. I'm wondering if they wanted to see how it was. So I think it was only planned for like the 2 or the small, maybe 3 or 4 episodes. I forgot how many it was, possibly 3. That's what it was supposed to be. I hope they weren't looking at a situation where, if we really like it and he's available, let's just have him on the show. But that was a terrible character. And I want to say also,
say it, piss everybody off.
No, I didn't. I'm not a fan of Robert California as well. I think we can spin.
I liked him. I liked Robert California.
I thought he was good.
I think we can. These are the people that we dislike, but I think we can turn this around maybe in a future episode to the worst character. And just because I think there's a separation between that. So like maybe we can spin that later. But I'd have to say those 2 for now.
D'Angelo Vickers, by the way.
D'Angelo. Yeah. Excuse me, I said Deontay.
No, you're good.
Deontay.
It's a wide receiver.
Yeah. D'Angelo Vickers and Robert California. And you know what? You're right, Bob. Maybe that's why the people are like and like you say that the last 2 seasons weren't that good, because these guys just weren't like it wasn't Robert California. It wasn't and that's nothing against what's his name? James Spader.
Yeah, I thought he was
nothing
good.
against him.
I liked him.
He's a great actor. He's a great actor, no doubt. It's just the character.
He was even good in Wolf.
Yeah.
I'm gonna piss everybody off. There's two that I at the end I was like looking back and I didn't really like. Andy could be a little too much at times. That might not. I know a lot of people really love him, and this one's just gonna piss off everybody. Good. Hopefully we get some interaction. Pam.
Oh, I don't like the way
Pam. I don't like the way Pam's character evolved over time and the way she. I don't know, man. I didn't. At the end, I was just like. Didn't really connect with the character. Of course, she still had her sweet moments. I loved her moments with Michael, especially when he left. Like they had such a father-daughter kind of relationship. But I don't like the way her character kind of evolved, especially towards the end. I didn't like it, dude. So I'm gonna say them, and then maybe people won't like that. But Stanley and Ryan, I could really do without either or. Like Ryan's character didn't really, I didn't really care for him as much. Stanley's character didn't really change at all. He's the same fucking dude, unless it was what day was it? Joseph was real happy.
Pretzel day.
Pretzel day. That's the only day.
He likes pretzel day.
That's the only day. But like other than that, he was played kind of the monotone character all the time. I could have done without. But yeah,
he's got a head full of hair now. Have you seen him recently? He's got a little wig action.
Wasn't he like on a Honeycombs commercial or something?
Yeah, that's correct.
Cheerio, yeah.
So he's got a head full of hair now. I want to respond to Pam and Andy, but first I'm going to give my selection. Gabe Lewis, did he give us anything other than dressing up as Lady Gaga?
He was hilarious. I liked him a lot, dude.
He had his moments.
Fuck away, bitch. You ever see that?
Yeah, that part.
I mean, his relationship with Aaron only served to make Andy more likable. So, I mean, I guess he did his job, right?
Which took a lot.
It just I wasn't a fan of Clark Green or Nellie Bertram. I think that was her last name.
Oh yeah. I wasn't a fan of Nellie either. After her whole little arc where she's the manager for a while, they didn't she barely had anything to do in the office.
No, she didn't have anything. Kind of
just like her character was just randomly.
Took the baby at the end, right?
She took the baby. That's all she did.
What were they supposed to do? You couldn't give her anything. The arc and her story.
They gave her a baby.
She showed up and took the job, and then after she lost it, she just kind of disappeared. So,
could I defend Andy and Pam a little bit so we could have a little dialogue? Something really short about Andy. It took.
He was short. He's like 5'5".
It took a lot of time to develop Andy, but once we got his backstory, I think he became more dimensional. I think he had good chemistry with Aaron. I didn't hate Andy Bernard. I thought he was one of my favorite characters. I know that, there was some drawback with towards the end. He wasn't as strong as he was in those middle seasons, but I liked Andy. I think with Pam, I think a lot of people accuse Pam of being weak, drab, and selfish. I think that's the angle a lot of people play. I think her flaws make her relatable. I mean, she's insecure, she's confused about her career, and it's not in a coy or coquettish way, I think. I think she covers a lot of ground other characters don't. I mean, she has career concerns, she has body image issues, she's trying to find an identity in the office, which is
a man, even though she has one. Done that twice on the show.
Mostly male dominated. I mean, she's a regular character without a gimmick, so people think she's boring. I think yes, her personality, is used as a vehicle to draw attention into Jim and her relationship. And Jim is so carefree and happy-go-lucky. We immediately think that she's the problem because she brings up all the concerns, right? I mean, why couldn't Jim just admit her replacement was attractive, right? People are going to say he doesn't win with Pam either way.
She
was, yes. That's unfair to her because those are very real discussions we all have. I mean, sometimes it's in the office, sometimes it's at Twin Peaks. Those are very real conversations. I think that the character of Pam is used as a conduit for a lot of tension and realism in the office setting. I mean, without her, the show is just about hijinks and zaniness. She makes the show and the situation's believable. I remember Phyllis's comment about you can't choose who gets the new clients based on who you're sleeping with this week, which was a wild thing to say. I think a lot of people feel ire towards Pam, and a lot of people agree with you, Bob. And I get it. She has some of the low lows in some episodes, and it doesn't help that Jim had great chemistry with Karen. Of course.
Great eyes.
Yes, she's great eyes.
No, I'm talking about Jim.
I don't hate her, though. I think she made the show better. I think the two main female cast members on the show, Jenna Fisher and Angela Kinsey, they host a popular Office Ladies podcast. Yes. I don't know if you guys listen to it. It's a really good show.
Yeah, they recap.
They recap. We're supposed to hate Angela and love Pam. I think a lot of people love Angela because they see her as a caricature of a coworker we've all known and disliked, and it's comical. Meanwhile, we're supposed to like Pam for her realness and being genuine, but many people dislike her for those reasons that you mentioned, Bob.
I didn't mind her. I have never minded her. I thought she was a great character. I just don't like how she evolved and like how it turns out, and
That was
you
a
know,
common
and like
complaint.
her like Jim is always shown himself to be a great guy and very supportive, and then at the end, like she didn't have his back on certain things. She was like didn't want to move to Austin and didn't what you know what I mean? Like little things like that where you're just like, dude, he's been nothing but great to you. So I don't know. You get very involved in the show and the characters, but that's a good thing. You know what I mean? You have some likes and dislikes on characters and how their evolution, how it happens.
For sure. And I'm pretty sure some of the actors probably had complaints about how their character evolved or didn't evolve. So I'm sure there's a lot of behind the scenes things that we're not aware of.
Oh, I'm sure.
Let's go to honorable mentions. Who do you got for your honorable mentions, Bob? Best character in The Office.
I'm just going to mention two because it's small office. We had a lot of characters, but I'm going to mention two. Jim is the obvious one. Jim is such a great character, a funny character. He's a young dude in the office. He's always playing the pranks. He's always doing the great. He has great interactions with Dwight and most and everybody there. So Jim is a great guy. And then Kevin. I have Kevin because Kevin makes me laugh. Like anytime he has a scene. I mean, just funny. Jim is probably one of the obvious choices. I think there's three that are extremely obvious, but Jim is probably one of the obvious. Kevin is probably like a more obscure choice, but I think he's funny. Like you said, the chili scene, like him playing dumb. I love a lot of the stuff that he does. That he's a drummer and he's a gambler and all that shit. And I don't know. I think he's a great character.
What about you, Joseph?
I got Kelly Kapoor. I think she's.
I don't like I like
No,
Kelly, but I wouldn't choose her as the best.
Yeah, I mean, she's not the best,
you.
but she's very funny and in her own thing. Of course, I have Kevin as well. I have Daryl Philbin. The whole how he runs the warehouse and then how he transfers up into the main office and just becomes part of the story and show altogether. As I don't think he was he was just a secondary character in the beginning, and he was
Roy's best friend and
Roy's best friend
in the warehouse,
and then he ends up being one of the best, I think. Of course, I got Jim, and I'm gonna throw a wrench into this. I'm gonna throw in Jan Levinson for all the crazy shit she did and all the funny stuff. Girl, lady was insane, but I love her.
You talking about Meredith?
Jan Levinson.
Oh, Jan.
Jan was great. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I bet you think so.
We all love Jen.
Funnier than Jen.
Yeah.
Meredith is hilarious.
Speaking of Meredith, I have her leading off my honorable mentions. She's probably the best throwaway. She probably has the best throwaway lines because they all revolved around sex and alcohol. So of course, it's funny, right? When you have somebody
and her having a bald head when everybody got lice, that was hilarious.
Oh yeah.
I have Oscar. They always use him as the voice of reason, almost as if he's a spectator who understands the ridiculousness of the people and the situation around him. So I always appreciated him for that.
I love how he always had a back and forth with Angela, and then at the end, like he ended up stealing her husband.
Yeah,
like, that was a great fucking angle. Yeah, I love that was a great. Then he left both of them for another man. Like I thought it was a great angle that they did with him.
I had Kevin as well. Listen, everybody. We've all worked a long time. People listening to this podcast have worked a long time, I assume. We've all had a job or jobs where we wonder, how in the hell is this person still here? The guy has a gambling addiction. He watched porn on his work computer. He seemed incompetent. And the joke was that he was finally fired in the last season by Dwight. But I mean, Kevin was I thought he was hilarious.
I like that episode where they're like installing software on their computers because they're trying to find whoever leaked the video of the printers burning, and there's like, oh, they're installing stuff on computers and he panics and he runs to his computer like, oh shit, and he goes, I already got yours, Kevin. He's like, oh, okay, that's cool. It's like he's clearly fucking like, oh shit.
They're gonna look through my computer and see all the porn or whatever he has on there.
I enjoyed Andy as well. I think after the anger management therapy, when he was knocked down a peg and had zero confidence, I think that's where we found him more likable. And lastly, of course, go ahead, Bob.
I would say it's funny how like he was such a likable character. Then he left and he did The Hangover and became an Hollywood actor, like a big in movies. And he came back and then his character got more depth. You know what I mean?
Good point.
I think it really did. Like it's hey, he could be more than just a guy that sings. sings fucking show tunes and like screws around on Office and everything like that. So that's good. I just found him a bit too much at times. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Before you continue, man, I'm sorry, and I know we've been talking. We haven't even gotten to the selections. I think the thing with Andy is he's a very funny character in the beginning. He's a likable character. He leaves for a bit his first time to obviously go film Hangover and whatnot. It's the second time that he leaves. The way that he's obviously goes to go do some other project where his character goes sailing and just kind of like just becomes an asshole to Aaron. It's the way that they chose to like have him exit for a bit. I think that's what kind of gets
where he was still like the manager, but he wasn't even there. He was sailing around. There.
I think that's where the hate or the dislike for Andy's character starts. But I do like how they redeem him in the end. He has one of the most memorable quotes of the series. I wish there was a way to know you were in the good times, or whatever. Wow,
I wish there's a way to know that you were in the good old days before they're the good old days.
Yeah, so he's redeemed in the end, and I think that's really great.
Lastly, I would go Jim. Same reasons. His pranks on Dwight were classic. I think we all see the show from more so from his perspective than anyone else's, because of all the looks at the camera, all the the nods and the shoulder shrugs. He's sort of the nexus for the absurdity. So kind of like Oscar in that way, where he knows he's in a strange world with all these strange characters, and I thought he was just such a good actor for that role. So let's go on to our selections. Bob, who is the best character from The Office?
Okay, so I went in a different direction, and I hope people have an open mind when I go with this character, because he really is the best character on The Office, and my favorite character. I chose Creed Bratton, for the best character on The Office. He is the most interesting. He's weird. He's hilarious on the show, and given his minimal screen time, whenever he's on, he really does steal the show. He's completely out there, completely hilarious, completely just nuts, and he really does like catch your attention with a little quip or a little joke or a little something that he does that catches the audience attention and makes you laugh, because he really is that hilarious. He dyes his hair jet black and tells everybody he's going to be 30. Well, he's 30. Well, I'll be 30 in November. He likes to steal. I mean, the casino night, he's stealing everybody's chips and shit like that. I thought that was hilarious. He runs a fake ID company out of his car. He uses the women's restroom, and then he gets, hey, not cool, dude, when somebody else is in there. He likes to scuba. If I can't scuba, then what's this all about? It's not all worth. I love that fucking scene where he's like, don't tell Stanley that I have asthma, because if word gets out, they won't let me scuba. And if I can't scuba, then what's this all about? What's this all been for? I love that. I think that's hilarious. Nobody knows what his job title is, not even him. You know what I mean? I think that's hilarious, that it's this common running joke that nobody knows what the hell he's doing there. But he's there. He has a job there. He has different aliases, which is really cool. He claims to have made the real Creed Bratton disappear. He's like, nobody steals from Creed Bratton. The last person to steal from Creed Bratton was Creed Bratton, or something like that. I think that's hilarious. He may be the Stratton Strangler, which I'm sure we'll talk about, Joseph, in a little while. He's very like anti-cop. Whenever the cops come around, he tries to hide. He tries to escape. I know they're doing that. They're doing that game where Michael's like, there's a dead body and you're a suspect, and he books it. Excuse me, I'll be right back. And he books it outside. He takes off in Chingas, which I thought is hilarious. He's just the strangest, most unique character on the show. Like, everybody has their little niche. You know what I mean? Jim is a certain character. Pam is a certain character. Oscar's the guy. Like, everybody has their person, right? Like, oh, this is their character. Then you have Creed, who is this complete, like, unique, oddball character that you just can't figure out, like, what the fuck is he all about? Like, why is he there? What is he doing sleeping there at night? Like, is he, what is he all, like, he's a good dude and everything like that, but he has, like, there's so much mystery around that character, which I really, really, really love. One of my favorite lines, and I don't know if y'all remember this, one of my favorite scene with Creed, and favorite lines, Jen walks into the office. She walks out of Michael's office, and it looks like she had a boob job done. And like Pam and Jim, everybody's all freaking out. And they cut to Creed in an interview, and he's like, I find it offensive. All natural, baby. That's how I like them. Swing low, sweet chariot. I couldn't stop fucking laughing. I could not stop fucking laughing. Swing low, sweet chariot. What the fuck? Like I think that's such a hilarious line, man. It's such a hilarious. He's such a unique and weird character, and what makes him great. All the little one-liners, all the little weird things that he does. Hey, can you make a steak for a vampire? Sure. What size? Like all the weird shit that he's done. He's actually given that final monologue at the end of the finale where he's talking and he's given this sweet finish, like about talking about life and leaving and losing each other and stuff like that. And it's very like sweet and poetic and like perfect fitting for the end of the show as they're all walking out of the office and they zoom into him and he's like giving the end and he's like, all right, let's do this. And he's getting arrested, which is fucking perfect. Like it's just a clever twist for him at the end. Like such a great ending monologue. It seals the deal. It makes the show like end on such a sweet note. And then for him to walk off being arrested at the end of it, it's just like the cherry on top of it. So he's my favorite character. He's the best character. He's the man, dude. So what do y'all think about this character? What do you think about it?
Love Creed. Definitely an honorable mention. I have to start off with some Creed quotes. You mentioned this one, Bob. Nobody steals from Creed Bratton and gets away with it. The last person to do this disappeared. His name? Creed Bratton. When he's talking to Meredith, acting like he's never met her, they're in the break room, and Angela just told Meredith something. He tells Meredith, Andrea's the office bitch. You'll get used to her.
And he starts eating her cereal, too, during that scene. But Angela leaves and he leaves her cereal. He starts eating Angela's cereal and starts talking to her. Yeah. Sorry.
My favorite Creed quote is, he's talking. He says, "I'm not offended by homosexuality. In the 1960s, I made love to many, many women, often outdoors in the mud and rain, and it's possible a man slipped in. There would be no way of knowing." I mean, his quotes were off the wall. I'm sure I fucked some of them up. Anyway, he works well because he is seldom used. He's got this mystery about him, and we don't know what it is or who he is or what he does or what makes him love people or hurt people or what makes him laugh. We don't know anything about Creed, and that's the joke. We don't know anything about him other than the absurd shit that he says, usually when they cut away in the documentary singles. I love when he forgets what he does for a living. Like, he doesn't know. He's just sort of wandering around. I think one of my favorite Creed moments was when they were playing the game. And you mentioned this, Bob, where, he told them that he was up for murder and he takes off, he peels out. The car just peels out like for 8 seconds and he's trying to get out of there because, he's got this criminal past, so to speak. I loved when he dyed his hair. He looked like Scott Weiland. I think we agreed to that.
For sure.
He's murdered people. He runs a fake ID business from a laminator he stole from a sheriff's office. He's been a cult leader. He's been a cult follower. And all he wants to do is do the perfect cartwheel. So pound for pound, you can argue that Creed makes the most of his screen time, I think. Yeah. His non sequiturs, it makes it feel like he's on the wrong show. It's like he's on a totally different show, and we love him for it. I think there's some jokes that the writers have Creed say that you probably cannot get away with in modern times, particularly his thoughts and behavior towards women. Also his thoughts on indecent exposure. When he told him he's just hanging brain. If that's
hanging brain. He goes, if that's illegal, then arrest me.
Yeah, that's flashing, lock me up.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's hilarious.
But that's who he was, a crazy, old, out of touch man. He shows up in blood on Halloween, not realizing it's Halloween. He's got his splattered blood t-shirt. Dwight shoots a gun in the office and hands it to Creed to hide it. I mean, what a bro, what a friend, hides the gun. He got a poor woman, Debbie Brown, fired and stole money from her condolence
card. That was hilarious.
What a scumbag.
They all pitch in money for it. On the way out, he steals it, throws away the card. That's fucking funny, dude.
He's definitely. I watched the 12. I watched 2 14-minute segments on him today. I couldn't stop laughing. But Creed Bratton, who's played by Creed Bratton, born William Charles Schneider, is an accomplished musician and a guitarist for folk rock psychedelic pop band The Grassroots, who frequently charted between 1965 and 1975. And I promise everyone you've heard at least one of their songs.
Yeah.
Their most notable hit is Midnight Confessions, a great song, by the way. I don't know how he got on this show. I want it to remain a mystery, much like his character, so I don't even want to research it. I think that despite all the horrible things he did, he was used absolutely correctly. Too much of Creed is not a good thing. You need the chip in and the one-liners. He's a good 8th guy off the bench that will get you those hustle stats. Can you build a show around him? No. But is he good for anything beyond the funny, horrible bastard jokes? No, but no complexity, no arc, but damn it, he's a great drop-in character. And I think that's why so many people love Creed, because the show gets a little heated sometimes. It gets a little serious. It gets a little emotional. But when you have Creed drop in, especially for those single shots, for those documentaries, you're going to have a laugh. And that's what the show is. It's a comedy. And nobody exemplified that more than a guy who wasn't a comedian. He wasn't a stand-up. He wasn't an actor. But damn it, he did this character right. He was so funny. What do you think, Joseph?
I think this guy is definitely in the top 10 of the show. Where you place him?
There's only 10 people on the goddamn office, Joseph.
No, there's not.
There's about 17 or 18 at a given moment.
Yeah. Okay. You could even put him. He's definitely in top 10. All right. And here's the thing. It's because he is probably one of the funniest characters. He's one of the funniest people on the show. That itself, though, I don't think is enough to be called the best character. I think we're going to talk character-wise. We're going to talk about everything other than just the funny stuff. And of course, it's not his fault. It's the way that they put him in the show. It's the way that they used him, because you couldn't use him too much, like you all just mentioned, just with all the crazy things that he says, crazy things that he did. You can't have a whole I mean, you could try to do a whole
they
show
have
around
it. That's the thing, though. They have it. Well, I'll explain more. Keep going.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. It would have been, well, at the time, I don't think it would have been too much. Obviously now you couldn't do some of the things that he does. I can't remember why he jumped up from his seat, slapped Meredith in the back of the head, but that always comes to mind.
Toby was doing like a self-defense class. He's like slap, scream, run, or
run.
Like hit. He goes, let's try it. So fucking Creed jumps up, slaps Meredith in the back of the head, and yells, ah, and he fucking books it up the conference room. Hilarious.
I don't know.
Shit.
Hands down, probably the funniest character, or one of the funniest characters all around. And as an Office character, I can't say he's the best. I just think he's one of the funniest, and I think that's the only thing you got, and that's the only knock as far as maybe this talking. And people are probably going to agree with you, though. If people think just because of the laughs alone that's enough, then that's great. That's fine. That's probably my only knock against him, is just because of how little he was used. Well, surprisingly, there was a lot of him, though, but his character never really had, you don't know too much of him. And that's great. That's perfect. That's just the way it's supposed to be.
I think that's part of like his mystique. Like,
that's great.
Don't show too much.
Wasn't he the office manager like for half an episode?
Yeah, he was.
An episode, yeah.
He fucking pulls up in a Porsche or some shit like that. Keep it running. He
throws the keys to nobody. He's sitting, give me our number one client on the phone right now. They're like, what? Just because of that alone, he's definitely top 10. That's the only thing I'm going to say against it is we see too little of him. And
let me add some complexity to him, though. I mean, they give you a little bit of Creed each episode. Like, I think that's what the fans are kind of waiting for. Like, what line is he going to have this week? What little shot or joke or whatever he's going to do this week? That excuse me, because he's a weird guy. So everybody's kind of waiting on that. But as I mentioned before, that final monologue showed like a certain side to him that you would probably see out of like Jim or Michael Scott or even Dwight at the end. Dwight, you never really saw it, not till the very, very end too. Different side to him. I love that they added that monologue that he's saying. He plays the guitar and he sings while everybody's sitting around the office and kind of crying. Kevin's kind of crying. It's the end of the very last episode. And I love that he has he basically has the last words of the show. And I think that it resonates with a lot of people. Those final words, they're really sad. Like those of y'all that cried for the finale, it was probably because of as it was ending and the words he used and the song he played. Like he had a lot to do with that. I agree. He's the funniest dude in the show, but to say he's not complex, we do see signs of that at the end. Could we have seen more of it? Sure. Would I have loved to have seen a Creed episode? For sure, but then we wouldn't have known. Like I said, we don't know. Was he the Scranton Strangler? We don't know. Was it Toby? We don't know. We don't know a lot about Creed, and that's what creates that mystique that I love so much about him.
Yeah, I think that we are led to believe the Scranton Strangler was either him or Toby, right? I mean, it's kind of...
Well, Toby was the only guy not there when they were doing the police chase.
Yeah,
that's true.
And then Toby goes to the jail because he goes to talk to the guy and he ends up getting strangled when he goes to speak with him. So the rumor is he went and told him like, hey, sorry, I'm the real Scranton Strangler. And the guy tried to kill him because He told him that's an episode for a different time. But yeah, I think it was Toby.
I think 10 is a little low for Creed. Do you have him like behind Bob Vance, Joseph?
No, Bob Vance. No,
of course
Joseph, what the fuck?
Of course not.
No, but I mean, we all love Creed. We all think he's funny. So good pick. Not a lot of people would agree with it because of he's such a minor character, right? But he does bring great laughs every time he's on screen. I think it's per minute, per laugh. Whatever stat is probably as high as anybody else's. I'll say that.
I also like that thing with Ryan where he says, and I have it up here. Last year, Creed asked me how to set up a blog, wanting to protect the world from being exposed to Creed's brain. I opened up a Word document on his home computer and put an address at the top. I've read some of it, even for the internet. It's pretty shocking.
I remember that.
He's fucking funny, dude. He's just that guy, man. He's a funny character.
Love it.
Joseph, who do you got for your selection?
All right, so I picked Dwight K. Schrute. How do you describe Dwight Kurt Schrute? 3 words: hardworking, alpha male, jackhammer, merciless. I know that's more than 3, but that's what he said. One of the most loyal employees of the company and loyal individual in general. His simpleton-esque upbringing tends to come off as weird, almost psychotic and gullible at times with his coworkers, but all in all, at his core, Dwight is one of the best human beings on the show. An oddball, of course, as I mentioned, he is indeed a very funny character with all his weird, goofy habits, his quote unquote rituals, excuse me, that we haven't done this in a while. We're all fucking up.
Rituals
that clearly differ and on almost anything, even something as simple as Christmas. Because of this, we also get a ton of great one-liners from Dwight as well. He's one of these other characters that has some great one-liners. Some things like people underestimate the power of nostalgia. Nostalgia is truly one of the greatest human weaknesses, second only to the neck. And of course, all you need is love. False. The 4 basic human necessities are air, water, food, and shelter. And many, many others. His back and forth with Jim obviously are the highlight of his character and some of the funniest back and forth I've ever seen on TV in general. The ever need to one-up him and show his superiority, hilarious. The many adventures that he goes on with Michael were for anything. I mean, again, I mentioned he was loyal to Michael, so he was always there with Michael when Michael was doing anything, and it was always good times and funny as well. Anything that happens in the office itself, he somehow interjects himself into it, only adding to the comedy of the show or the episode. And I think it's perfect. He has a way of somehow adding to an episode or even taking over an episode. And I always thought that was great. I also mentioned how good of a human being he is. You see this in his odd and very unique relationships with his coworkers, later his subordinates, as he calls them, whether it's his loyalty to Michael, like I mentioned, the never-ending war with Jim, his understanding of all that is Creed. I'm glad you mentioned the gun scene when he fires the gun in the office. Creed is very quickly there. All Dwight had to do was lift his arm with the gun, and immediately Creed grabs it, takes it, and knows what to do. He has to have some kind of great friendship with him that we don't ever really see. I'm sure we all noticed it, but if it's something you didn't notice and you had to rewind it, or DVR or DVD wise, just to go back and see him immediately just, lift the gun up in the air and it immediately being taken away. It's one of the funniest things, simple, funny things. And of course, his relationship with Pam, his best friend, as he calls her, it only adds to the mystique of Dwight. His need to protect those that he works with, even if he claims to hate them. The whole situation where he has weapons all around the office, how he saves Jim from, what's his name? I can't remember. Roy, when Roy's going to attack him. And of course, a really great scene, sweet scene that I think gets overlooked, probably the beginning of their great friendship. When he finds Pam alone crying in the hallway, he immediately asks, "Who did this to you?" Like if he's going to go fucking beat somebody's ass for hurting Pam. He claims to hate, dislike everybody, but he's immediately, "I'm going to go, you're going to be okay. I'm going to take care of you." I think it's just overall one of the greatest character growths for a character on this show. Not only funny, but just with in general, his whole thing. Strange and unusual as he may be, in the end, he's shown to be caring, obviously, nurturing individual, and a great boss and a great friend to those around him and his family, of course.
Okay, so what The Office does with this ensemble and balanced cast is that they've all checked the stereotypes of office culture and office personalities. They did this with such a broad cast, and at one point the roster was 17 deep, I think 18 if you include Gabe in season 6 on, and as many as 20 speaking parts in a given episode. You look at the traditional sitcom, and you'll be lucky to showcase maybe 6 characters the way The Office showcased 3 times that amount. That's an insane amount of equilibrium. I say all that to focus on what Dwight was supposed to be and what he evolved to be. Dwight was the office kiss ass when the show started. He was the narc, the misanthropic. I hate everyone at work, so nobody will have joy simply because I refuse to find mine outside of the actual duties of this job and sucking up to my boss. I would venture to say that he was the breakout star. We all knew Steve Carell and John Krasinski and Ed Helms. We all knew that they were going on to bigger and better careers. It hasn't quite happened yet for Rainn Wilson or Jenna Fisher, how I thought it would happen. But I'm more shocked with Rainn Wilson not having that level of success, at least not yet. And that's not a knock, it's a compliment, because I think he's a brilliant character actor. He was great in Juno, and I really loved him in The Rocker. I thought that was an underrated movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Great movie.
Yep.
I don't think The Rocker did well financially, so maybe fickle Hollywood didn't allow him to have another starring vehicle. His portrayal of Dwight, I think you have an argument as this being the best character portrayal of the series. He received 3 consecutive Emmy Award nominations for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series. I think he had a comfort in being on this show as long as he was, more so than Steve Carell. I think by season 5, Carell was already thinking of a way out. Meanwhile, they were dangling Schrute Farms as a spinoff where Wilson would continue playing Dwight. They even did a pilot within the show, and thank God they nixed that idea.
I actually didn't think it was bad at all. But
you
I'm sorry,
you liked it? No.
I thought it would have worked.
I like Mose.
Mose, yeah.
Mose would have made it
I want
fucking
to see
fun.
more Mose. Keep going. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
I thought it was good.
I'm glad you brought that up. I think Wilson took the deepest dive into his character. That's why it was so good, and that's why Dwight evolved into being one of the most likable characters. I mean, even though he was antagonistic, he sleeps with Angela when she's engaged to Andy and married to the senator. He did some crazy shit. He tried to get Jim fired. He tranquilizes Stanley. He betrays Michael at points. He once killed a dog because he thought it was a werewolf. He kidnaps people he assumes to be undocumented, puts them to work and rips them off. He's sexist, obsessive, destructive. He acts superior, but those are also in some way comedic, devices that they use for Dwight. I get that these are caricatures from people we've all known and worked with. They soften Dwight up to a dedicated, loyal, self-aware colleague. He starts to embrace his strengths and weaknesses, and he becomes more self-aware and more caring, as you mentioned, Joseph. He also did the most important thing that no other character on the show did. He saved the final 2 seasons. He was the only character outside of Michael Scott that could do this. Michael carried 5 seasons and a half of the show. I don't count season 1 because it was abbreviated and the show was still discovering what it wanted to be. But a lot of shows fizzle towards the end. And that's why they end. I mean, Seinfeld, the last couple of seasons were terrible once Larry David left. Friends stumbled through the last season. That 70s show, once the 2 main characters, Ashton Kutcher and Topher Grace, left. Big Bang Theory, was horrible at the end.
It was always horrible.
12 seasons was way too many. Modern Family was unwatchable those last 3 seasons. The Office went from this great show to a still pretty good show. And for those last 2 seasons, they could have ended it after season 8, but I think that we got a bonus season because of a cast that was led by Rainn Wilson as Dwight. I don't think any other character could do that. So I think that's why Dwight is definitely up there as one of the best. What do you think, Bob?
I agree with that to a certain extent. I think him and Jim kind of their dynamic and their growth kind of took the reins for the last couple of seasons of the show. Rainn Wilson, I think that Dwight's character is one of the funniest characters on the show as well. Joe, it's a great pick. I think it's an obvious pick for a lot of people as well. Like, oh, it's got to be Dwight. Dwight really did, though, as much as you say, he did develop over time, but he was very one-dimensional. He was the Steve Stifler of the American Pies. That was Dwight on The Office. And I think that's why the rocker didn't really work, because what character was he, Rand? He was Dwight Schrute. He was Dwight Schrute as the rocker.
Dwight, yeah.
So it didn't really work, I think, outside of The Office for that character, which kind of held him back because he's a really brilliant actor. He really did. He came out with a book. Those of y'all don't know, it's called Soul Pancake, Soul, Soul, and then Pancake. It's an interactive book. It's like kind of like finding yourself, that type of thing. It's really, really great. If y'all have never heard of it, Google it, find it on Amazon, buy it. It's really, really cool. There's a lot of interactive stuff on there. It's kind of like you draw certain things, you do certain things, you help certain people. It's really, really cool. So if you haven't checked that out, Soul Pancake, really cool by Rainn Wilson. But going back to the character, definitely a top 5 character all time on the show. You ask anybody, have you seen The Office? Oh, there's 3 characters people usually turn to real quick. It's Michael Scott, it is Jim, and then of course it's Dwight Schrute. So he's one of the 3 main characters. I love how he evolved at the end, to be kind of like touching, and like you said, like, oh, he protects his, he becomes great friends with Jim and Pam and everybody. He even helps Jim out at the end, like you're fired, so that way you can have
that was
paid leave. Yeah, severance. But that really did happen at the end. Like, I think they had to change his character once Steve Carell left, because while Steve Carell was still there, he was still kind of Dwight Schrute. He was the Stifler character. Didn't really change. He had it, back and forth with Jim all the time. He was like you said, Ryan, he was the tattletale. He was the, I don't like you. You do it my way. If you're not doing it my way, like he had something to say about it. So he's a really great character. He really, really is. I really did feel like he was one-dimensional for a very long time until the latter seasons where they started to evolve his character. And I love the way they did it, because he really did turn out to be such a great character. I wish they had done it sooner. Mm-hmm. But because he was he did the same shit over and over again, Bears beats Battlestar Galactica type of shit. So I wish they had done it sooner. That's my only argument against that.
I think what adds to, I guess, the character growth is you kind of see throughout, and why maybe they had to do what they did. It's not necessarily that they had to do what they did to his character. I think throughout the show you see that although he's crazy, weird, odd, the other coworkers follow him. Like when they feel like they're being wrong, the salesman and the saleswoman, it's usually Dwight who's leading the charge, and they fall in line when they're pissed off with Michael because he had left to start the company and he took the clients and he doesn't want to give the clients back to them because they didn't follow him. They follow Dwight, and Dwight leads this kind of like revolts against them. And I think that just kind of added to when he does finally reach that goal where he's made the manager, everybody knows and is all for it because they know he cares about the company. He knows that they're going to have jobs because
except for Kevin. He fires Kevin.
Well, he had to. His internet searches were so filthy they had to throw away the computer. Is that it? That's all? That's it.
I agree. And
beautiful moment, by the way, when they make up and become friends, and it's like, I missed you, Kevin. And like, I missed you.
I think, but Joseph, would you agree? Rainn Wilson, a talented actor, probably should have a better career than what he has.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he's not doing good stuff out there, but man, I mean, coming off Dwight, I thought he'd have a better career than Ed Helms, but he's not quite there yet.
I don't want. No, I can see this guy playing a badass serial killer in a movie, almost Riddler-like, in a dark version, like these dark versions of Batman's. These new the Rob Pattinson Batman. I know Dark we already Knight, have, like something. I can see him doing that. Like I can see, and I'm not trying to like, oh, it's because he's weird or it's just no. He's that good, and he can also make you laugh. So yeah, I hope we get more from him.
Can I ask you a question, Ren?
Sure.
Andy, what's Andy's name, real name?
Ed Helms.
Andrew.
Ed Helms. What exactly has he done film-wise that has made him such a big star?
Actually, at this point, dude,
The Hangover, right?
He wasn't the star in The Hangover. He was maybe the fourth funniest guy out of the 4 dudes over there. He did a shitty version of like a
the
vacation
Christmas
movie.
Vacation. Yeah, Vacation.
Yeah, he hasn't really been a big star either. I mean, I know that Rainn Wilson has some flops, but I don't really see him doing much either. Not to shit on his, not to shit on him at all. I'm just saying,
It's
like you're saying, like, I was hoping, Rainn Wilson would have been a bigger star, just as big a star as he did, but the other guy didn't do shit either.
But Ed Helms has something that Rainn Wilson doesn't have. He has a franchise. I mean, the Hangover franchise. The Hangover franchise was huge. So
it wasn't because of him. I mean, it was because
he was a big part of it. He was a part of the ensemble.
I would say he's a part of it, but I wouldn't say he's a big part. The best thing he did was get knocked up by Mike Tyson.
Also, pulling out his own tooth was pretty impressive too.
I'm just saying, he still got it.
But I will say, coming off the Hangover movies, Ed Helms' career, it's maybe not as not the pathway it probably should be. I mean, he did this movie recently with Jennifer Garner. It was a body swap movie that was on Netflix. That was a pretty good movie, but he's kind of middle road right now. He's not as Steve Carell or
that's not a knock against him.
John Krasinski. No. Yeah. I was just saying, like, I think nobody really. John Krasinski really was besides Steve Carell. John Krasinski's the only one that had a big career afterwards.
Yeah. Mm.
I just watched
fucking Stanley's over here doing, Honey Nut Cheerio commercials. For God's sake.
I just watched If today with my family. It's a John Krasinski directed, written, and starred in movie, and it was a sweet movie. And John Krasinski definitely has a lot of talents as a writer, actor, and as a director. So I mean, I think his career solidified, as is Steve Carell's, as one of the funniest actors on film. Carell. And speaking of Steve Carell, we're gonna go with my selection, and of course, I had to go with the one and only Michael Scott. I get it. This is like picking Mickey Mouse as your favorite Disney character or vanilla as your favorite ice cream flavor. The easiest argument to be made here is that the show lost its fastball after Michael Scott exited. We've seen this before, most notably with John Travolta when he was no longer a main cast member on Welcome Back, Kotter, and only filmed cameos. The show tanked after that. There are other examples before and after. I know that we were all heartbroken when Snooki left the Jersey Shore. Joseph, what's your take on Snooki, by the way? It took Jim Parsons leaving The Big Bang Theory for the show to wrap up. They went 12 seasons and they wanted to squeeze in 2 more years. They offered Jim Parsons $50 million for 2 more years. Dave Chappelle on The Chappelle Show, Topher Grace on That 70s Show. The list goes on and on.
Parsons you mentioned Parsons on an Office episode. God damn it. You know how many awards that he stole from Steve Carell? God damn it. Let's not mention that piece. I hated that show. Hated even more that he stole Best Actor award from Steve Carell in The Office.
I've probably watched 3 or 4 episodes of The Big Bang Theory. Wasn't impressed.
Well, don't mention his ass. We're bitter over here. Office fans are bitter for that piece of shit stealing our awards.
We can have a whole show on whose departure created the biggest void, right? Michael Scott has to be considered, Steve Carell. I forced myself to watch those last 2 years of The Office. Yes, we saw sparks of good TV, and they were decent seasons in retrospect, but his absence was surely missed. The show brought in Will Ferrell, James Spader, a fake Jim and Dwight. Nothing could replace the space Michael Scott occupied on that show. He was the perfect balance of main character meets sideshow comic relief. That's hard to do because usually the main characters drive the stories around the show. In this case, Jim and Pam did. But Steve Carell's imitations, the characters he invented, are the most memorable things that The Office ever produced. I'm going to name some of these characters. Michael Wonka, Michael the Magic, Minkos the Greek Ego, Blind Guy McSqueezy, Michael Clump, Prison Mike, Caleb Crawdad, Date Mike, Michael Scarn. Every character he invented was just hilarious and took on a life of its own, even now in memes. Nobody on this show used their comedic and improvisational talents more than Steve Carell did with Michael Scott. This was his playground. And you can argue he dominated the scenes where absurdity came into play, but I would argue that like a good point guard, he upped everyone's game. He made everyone better performers. I think the true measure of a performance, you can ask yourself, can anyone else portray this character better than Steve Carell? The answer is an emphatic no. To that I add that this character in anyone else's hand hands it misses. I don't think anybody else can play this character. Even that first season, Carell doesn't know it yet, but Michael Scott and his character, they're not that strong. He's essentially the eye-rolling asshole that first season. So they made that one tweak. In season 2, they made that shift. It's a lighter show, both in comedy and the way the set was lit. Steve Carell has more hair, inexplicably. He does this remarkable shift into the character we all know and love. And what happens? The show skyrockets. He has a great backstory, and he's, as a successful salesman who was promoted to management, and he's completely unsuited for it, in over his head. It's called the Peter Principle. Look it up. He grows to care about his employees. He supports them. Listening to the podcast, the Office Ladies podcast that we mentioned before, that's hosted by Jenna Fisher and Angela Kinsey, they do a great job describing these moments of redemption Michael has. And it makes him smart. It makes him human. It makes him sympathetic. He was the boss nobody could stand in season 1. And if that would have been his character the rest of the way, the show wouldn't have made it. But he evolved into a vulnerable, complex human. And I don't know if there was a direction the show was initially going with his character, but damn it, it landed. And this argument is beyond Michael being the funniest or the most offbeat. He's truly the total character that everybody loves, with flaws, with dreams, with care. And that's why we love him so much. And I think that's why Michael Scott is the best character on this show. What do you guys think?
I love Michael Scott. And Steve Carell, that character, he is the fucking show. I think he is the most obvious pick around. Like you said, like, oh, you're talking about The Office with Michael Scott, Steve Carell. Because he's got, if the show is, 30 minutes, he's got 27 minutes of screen time. You know what I mean? He's going to have the best jokes. He's going to have the most storylines. He's going to have the most well-rounded character. I disagree, though, that you say that, oh, well, they needed to change his character from season 1 because nobody would have watched. I watched the fucking series because of season 1 and because of his character and because of the show. I thought he was hilarious. I thought he was closer to Ricky Gervais in The Office, the
UK.
The British version. Yeah. Than he is obviously the season 2, season 3, they made him softer, they made him funnier, they made him like kind of the airhead boss that didn't know what the fuck he was doing. You know what I mean? I love it though. Like, it's, again, Steve Carell, beautiful human being. Michael Scott, great character. I love everything he does. I love how he gets the hot chick. I love how things end up working out for him in the end. I love how he starts his own paper company and then, like, as they're like, dude, you're stupid. You're going to run out of business. You're not going to make it. He was like, fuck no. I just got to wait you all out. You're going to lose business. That's why you're having a meeting with me. I love that he, like, fights back and shows, like, a different side of him. I love that he's such a well-rounded character. But, like you said, like, oh, we're going to do a show about Nirvana and all you talk about is Kurt Cobain. There are other characters. There are other band members. There are other, a band is made up of multiple people, just like a TV show. So there's a lot of cast members and characters that made this show great. So I do think that if people step back and like look at each individual character, they may find that certain characters stand out a little bit more than Michael Scott. But it's kind of hard to do because he had the screen time, he had the jokes, he had the storylines, he had every opportunity to be the main person because he was involved in everything. The show is about him running the office. As much as it's about all the other characters in the office, it's about him interacting with everyone in the office. It's a good pick because it's the obvious pick. So I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. Joseph, what do you got about him?
It is one of the better selections, better picks. If we're talking about a Mount
top
Rushmore,
10, tell him, Joseph.
I'd say 5.
Yeah.
I'd say 5. He's definitely top 5. I believe he's on that Mount Rushmore of Office characters. He has to be. I mean, it's like you said, he's the focal point of the show is, like Bob just said, Michael running the office. Aside from that, it's also Michael's personal life that comes into play in the show a lot, and every decision that he makes in his personal life and how that affects I know how it shouldn't affect the office, but his close relationship with his coworkers and kind of going to them for advice on situations, whether they want to give it or not, they get, involved in his personal life. So the whole thing it's obviously him. You don't have the show. You're not supposed to have I'll say that. You're not supposed to have the show if you don't have Michael. We had the show for 2 more seasons without him, though. I like how they decided that, season 8 wasn't the biggest hit, so let's not let's send this out the right way with season 9, wrap up things and let it go. And that's kind of the way I feel like they did. He's obviously a very funny character. He's goofy, occasionally very stupid, but like not, he's unaware of it, and it's not his fault. Deep down, I believe he's a good person.
Yeah.
He's just very unaware of situations, and that's what makes him funny. Of course, it's a lot of the things that made his character funny, and the things and the jokes and whatnot. We've discussed this before. As Steve Carell has said, you probably couldn't have his character in today's landscape of TV shows.
Yeah.
And he can't, the things that he said or made jokes
That's
about.
what she said.
Yeah.
But I loved in his own way, his own unique relationships with his characters, his coworkers as well. His relationship with Pam, whether she realized, and she did realize it in the end, this loving relationship, not on a physical level, although he did make a pass at her once or twice, or said something inappropriate about her looks.
That was her mom.
But he very much is very he's very much protective of her, and I think that's a great thing. And of course it's them too on his final in his final episode, his final scene. It's them too, and I think that was perfect. That was
At the airport.
That's the way it should have been. Second to that being his scene, his last scene with Jim. Really great stuff. Yeah, man, he is a very great character. This show is as successful as it is because of him. Along with the of course the surrounding cast and characters are great. We love them. That's why we're talking about them. But the show is Michael Scott. He's the nucleus of this show. It's just a really great pick, man. I think of course people are gonna obviously put Michael Scott in top 5. They might call him the obvious choice, like Bob said, as the number 1. I don't think that hinders it at all. We've clearly stated that the show revolved around him and worked because of him, and also kind of failed in the end because he left. So we can't ignore that.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Why didn't
no, fuck you. Never mind. I don't want your question.
Why didn't they bring in or keep Ricky Gervais after Steve Carell left? I know they had that little brief interaction.
Thank you for reminding me. Thank you for saying
that brief interaction. I think that would have been fucking fantastic. You get the original dude to come in and kind of like take the torch back and kind of do his version of Michael Scott's character. Like, you know what I mean? He could have done his version of Michael Scott's character, which was different from Steve Carell's character.
I wouldn't have watched it. I wouldn't have watched it.
Really? I would have. I love Ricky Gervais.
I'm not a fan of Ricky Gervais's. I watched one episode of the British version.
Well, you're not British, sir. You eat sausage for breakfast?
because obviously found out that this show is, it's an American version of a British television show. So I wanted to see, because I love this so much, I wanted to see what we got, the great inspiration from, and I watched one episode and I couldn't do it.
Tell people you didn't give it a chance without telling people you did it. I watched one episode. I watched 20 minutes, and then it's not good.
Well, I think a lot of it relies on synergy and chemistry. Ricky Gervais developing The Office, the British version, the original version, he got to pick and choose his roster. I think coming into this show, maybe he doesn't have the same chemistry he has, or maybe he doesn't want to discredit the history of what he put forth in the landmark, asshole boss motif that he developed. So maybe he thought this wasn't going to be right to bring him back, and it would have sort of hindered that memory of what we have of the British version.
I could see that, but bringing in, I think he'd be way better than Will Ferrell.
Okay, I'll give him that. I'll give him that. Yeah,
Will Ferrell was bad.
I'll give him that.
He was terrible. He was terrible. No, he was terrible. Will Ferrell has the two personalities, like the crazy personality, like
same character,
and then it's the same character. Then this was the mean version of the same character he fucking plays all the goddamn time. I don't like it.
It's the same character that he kind of had when in Kicking and Screaming, where he was suddenly winning a bunch of games. He developed that, I'm better than you, coach. I'm the I'm better than you, Ditka.
The Mike Ditka.
It was the same thing.
Let's give credit to the comedic acting chops of James Spader and Kathy Bates.
I love Kathy Bates.
Kathy Bates was a great character. You know what? I'm sorry. Thank you for reminding me about Kathy Bates. In her limited screen time, she was very funny. I loved her character.
Kathy Bates is just amazing all around. Like bringing her in, that's like a
Doesn't
fucking
love Kathy
legit
Bates,
actor
right?
that they brought in to be. I love her, except for in Misery. God, my ankle still hurt from thinking of Misery.
Could have
James
done with,
Caan, how are you walking?
could have done
Before-
without the bathtubs, the hot tub scene in About Schmidt, but that's a whole other story.
What about
Anyway.
the Saran wrap and fried green tomatoes?
And I know we occasionally
don't care
see
what
that
you
we
say.
have some listeners in good old Great Britain. Look, I'm not dissing your version of the show. It doesn't work for me, and you can call it what you want to call it. Look, is it the difference between American humor and British humor? Most definitely. I am not of British descent. I am not, I am an American. So my comedy is geared to, or my
Kind of Mexican.
yeah, that too. So maybe that's why I can't get it. Maybe that's why I can't get into the show. But I'm not knocking it in any way. Obviously, it is critically acclaimed, and it is the reason why we have the American version of The Office.
Go ahead, Joseph.
No, I'm just saying. I'm not trying to diss it in any way. It just wasn't for me. But I will say he would have been a better choice. I'm sorry than obviously Will Ferrell.
if you guys want to watch a great British sitcom, John Cleese and Fawlty Towers. What a great sitcom. Check it out.
I was going to say Mr. Bean.
Mr. Bean is great too.
I fucking love Mr. Bean.
Guys, final thoughts on The Office.
Like I said in the beginning, top 5 for me of all time shows. I will watch this thing nonstop over and over as long as I can. I have the full series on digital copies, so I can watch it whenever I want. Obviously,
Peacock.
Yeah, there's that too. And I will continue to do so. It will never not be funny to me, regardless of the, humor that maybe won't people won't go for these days. We're from the time where we know that this was all in lighthearted fun and not to be taken too seriously, and to be able to laugh at yourself. I'm always going to be able to watch it. It will always be funny to me. Like I said, hands down, like I said, top 5 show. I'm a little nervous of this supposed reboot, which has, as far as I know, no connection to this Office. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. I agree, dude. The Office is probably one of my favorite shows of all time. There's only certain shows that I can watch reruns of. Like back in the day, we used to watch reruns because that's the only thing that was on TV. Now that you have, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Peacock, every Hulu, Disney Play, like you could watch a million new shows like back to back to back to back, and you'll never watch the same show. The Office is one of those shows that if it's on TV and they're showing a rerun, I will stop and I will watch it because it's hilarious. It's warm-hearted. There's great characters. I really do love the show. I think that it'll be one of the shows like Friends that we'll still be watching in the next 15 years, 20 years. I do disagree that the jokes are too much for these people. I think that they're just fine. We're not talking about Blazing Saddles. I think the Office jokes are just fine. I don't think people would take them too serious. I don't think they said anything that was like, oh my God, people nowadays might be thinking that's a little way too much. But even then, if they do, like you said, like, hey, it's meant to be hilarious. It's meant to be funny. It's meant to be great. It's a really great show, and I'm glad they ended it the right way. I really do. I love the finale. I love them leaving the office. I love how people were moving on and stuff like that. It was a great ending.
I think you guys both answered a question that was asked earlier about what shows has it inspired, and can they make this show again in the style and comedy that it was? And yes, it wasn't too over the top, at least for our comedy taste, right? But a lot of people say that you can't do X, Y, and Z because you're shaming this or you're doing that wrong. And that's kind of what The Office did, is what it pushed buttons, it pushed stereotypes and delivered them in a very, I would say hilarious way, but also in a way where we got to understand people better. And we got to understand people as office jerks and office morons, and also office people who cared about each other in a way by utilizing a lot of the humor that maybe cannot be used now. I don't know. I think I didn't find anything over the top about The Office the way, some of these comedies in the 70s and 80s were portraying things. But there's some people, and Steve Carell said it himself, there can't be another Michael Scott the way I portrayed him, because people will come out with their pitchforks and say that, cancel culture and all that stuff. And that's sad because The Office, I thought it was not only a funny show, but it was also a show that taught us a lot and gave us a lot of these lessons. Steve Carell was the only cast member nominated for a Golden Globe, and he won 1 out of the 6 nominations. Carell, Rainn Wilson, and Jenna Fisher were all nominated for Primetime Emmys for acting. No wins. Carell had 6 nominations, Wilson had 3, and Fisher had 1. I don't think going 1 for 16 on major acting awards hurts the show because, again, it was a well-balanced ensemble, and that's what the show was. It wasn't about who was on top. That's why this was such a fascinating conversation, because we could say, yeah, it was, Michael Scott was a main character, or Jim and Pam drove the plot, or Dwight was the one that kind of took over towards the middle, but it was an ensemble. And I think 22 minutes of a show is not long. It's not a long time, and every character has these YouTube clips of their best moments, and they're all solid gold comedies. Great ensemble cast. Maybe they're up there as the best. People will say maybe Friends or Seinfeld or even MASH, which I hated, but this show was perfectly cast. Remember, some heavy hitters auditioned for this show. Catherine Hahn, Patton Oswalt, Adam Scott, Ann Dudick, Eric Stonestreet, Seth Rogen, Bob Odenkirk, John Cho, Nick Offerman. All these people auditioned for The Office and didn't get selected. So that's just mind-bending. So finalizing this roster into such a memorable cast was an accomplishment in and of itself. This show has a unique distinction that even as it ages, the characterizations are timeless. So it makes the show timeless. You can rewatch any episode at any time and just get lost back into this world. And for me, it's definitely a top 5 sitcom.
I know for a fact that, and this is nothing against Seth Rogen, I'm a fan of his movies and him in general. I would not be talking this fondly about Dwight K. Schrute if it was Seth Rogen playing the character.
Yeah, I think that would have been miscast.
Well, I mean, Rainn Wilson did audition for the Jim's role at the beginning too, so that would have been different.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been interesting. There's a lot of great history that you could find through podcasts, through YouTube clips, through auditions. We were very fortunate that this show evolved and came to us when the internet and social media and YouTube and all these other things are at the forefront, because it really gave us the opportunity to delve deeply into these characters, these actors, and what they were and what they're about to become. So great talk, guys. I really enjoyed talking about The Office.
Yeah, The Office, fun. Great show, man. That was a good pick. Good topic.
That's our show, everyone. Listeners, we'd love to hear from you. Hit us up and let us know what you think or who you think the best character from The Office is. Most importantly, let us know what you think about the show. You may reach us at formidableopponents@gmail.com and follow us on all forms of social media by searching for Formidable Opponents. We want to thank Creative Little Pill for her great artwork. Please follow her on Instagram at Creative Little Pill. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on any podcast platform you're listening to us on. And join us next episode. We'll be back next week with Best Punk Rock Songs. So for Bob and Joseph, this is Randall. We'll see you next week.
Boy, have you lost your mind? Sorry. God damn.
Look, you better not mention Blink 182.
Let's cut that completely. I didn't think you were saying anything.
We're keeping it in.
That's what she said.
There you go.